My name is Father Michael Stalla. I am the spiritual director for Hope's Garden. Today I'm going to do something a little bit differently. Today I'd like to tell you about my experience and why I believe that Hope's Garden is initiated by our Lord, by the Christ the bridegroom, and why I continue to be a part of it. You see, I was ordained in 2003. In 2001, the church scandals broke out. They talked about all the bad things that priests were doing with children in particular, and it was really heart-wrenching. And the more we read about it, the more sickening it became. And a lot of people, they want to walk away from the church. A lot of people came to me and said, "Hey, you're a good guy. You're a healthy man. You should walk away from this. You don't want to be associated with this." People that I really trusted their opinions were trying to encourage me to leave the seminary and not become a priest. And I understand they were trying to protect me, and they were angry just as I was about these reports. As some of us, and all of us, if we're honest, at some point became a bit defensive. That's not what the priesthood is about. These people are saying things just to ruin the reputation of the church. That's not really what was happening. This was a reality, and is a reality, that there are many, many victims out there that, in particular men, not just men, but in particular men, have been abusing women, younger women in particular, even children. The church was not the only ones, but it was important for us to be the first ones to begin to clean house, to name it for what it was. I wish I could turn back and say it was the church who stood forward in a prophetic way. It was not. It was newspapers. It was all these things from the secular world who called us out. Good for them. I thank them for that. By the time I was going to be ordained, I wasn't sure what to do. The more I prayed about it, the more I realized, you know what the church needs? You know what the world needs? Good, healthy, holy people to step forward, not step away. Because if the good step forward, we got a chance. But if all the good people step away, we abandon the church to the wicked. And then who's going to stop them? Who's going to prevent those children from being abused? This was up to us to step forward. Would my reputation be at risk just being associated, just being a Catholic priest? Yeah, you betcha. But how could I stand before the throne of God when I believe he called me to be a priest and to say, but I protected my reputation? No, I had to risk it all. But I've dedicated my priesthood in a special way for the protection of children and others. And to realize the wickedness of mankind is always going to be there. And somebody needs to be there to help bring healing to the victims and to the sinners. Get them in a safe place where they can't harm anyone. Get a chance to redeem. Be redeemed in the sense of make amends, whether that be jail time or counseling, probably both, do penance. What I found is that as I entered into the priesthood, there was a lot of hurt people. Many were hurt over the scandals themselves. They were just so hurt that the church had anything to do with this. They were hurt because they kind of held a priest up as being like, well, you're a different kind of man, only to realize we were just men. We're just men. I have a special calling. I have a strong spiritual life. I'm just a man. Those sicknesses I might not have, but I always need checks and balances as well. I have a strong spiritual director who helps me to do that. So I began to bring healing to those who needed to know this, needed to know that everything was not lost, that their cries, their anger was being heard, and that somebody was doing something about it. And we've done a great deal of help. but we don't want to pretend like everything's been solved. We got it all done. The deeper I went down this path, the more I started to realize it wasn't just children. There were lots of people being hurt. There were just relationships. And then I started realizing it wasn't just priests. There were a lot of married couples. There were couples that were dating. There were lots of teenagers and young adults who had all kinds of hard, very difficult, damaged trauma. They needed healing too. And the more that I prayed with them, the more my heart ached for them. It's only later, as my heart began to ache so much, and I asked the Lord, how do you continue on in the midst of all this? That I realized it wasn't my heart aching. It was actually the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And the more that I put on the person of Jesus Christ, the more I felt his deep pain for the sinners and for the victims. And this was the most sacred of places. The sexual life, it's very intimate, very quiet. When there is sexual abuse, when there is relationship abuse, people don't talk about it, but they certainly need healing. It's very much core to our identity as man, as woman. It affects families, affects other relationships. Bringing healing into that moment was something that even I need help with. Am I not a man who sees things on television? Do I not see a culture that really doesn't have a lot of respect for sex? Do I not feel belittled in some way because I'm a celibate? At least by a world that doesn't understand that spiritual life? And so what ends up happening is the Lord talks to me more deeply about this. I need you to go into the darkness, to be with those in the dark, and point them to the light. And then I met Laura Ercolino. Never met anyone in such deep darkness who seemed untouched by the darkness, at least her soul. Well, she was in a very bad place, and God pulled her out of that in ways that I could not do. And I started seeing it with other women. The more she started meeting these women and sharing the story and beginning Hope's Garden, there was this duplication of the light. And I began to write down everything, every note that Laura ever wrote to me, every insight she had without any formal education in theology. And I began to look at it with a critical eye and found saint after saint after saint that agreed with what Laura was experiencing. There was a repetition of something happening in history. And then I started seeing it with the other members of Hope's Garden, that they were having the same things I heard about with the saints, that they were having the insights, that they were having the freedom. I realized God was doing something new. And it was coming out of the scandals originally. That somebody had to face the darkness and not just look past it. Not just hope that, well, at least it didn't happen to me. Not just hope, well, we changed a couple of rules, so now it's finished. To really enter into the darkness. There were other souls that needed help there. And I was just one person. But I keep meeting all these other priests, especially those close to theology of the body, who found themselves in the darkness, pointing out the light. Now, not everybody can handle that. Some of you are the ones looking for healing. Some of you will be called to be the healers based on your own witness, your own experience. And some of you, you don't need to go into the dark to go get anyone. He'll ask each of us according to his plan, according to our ability. This was a gift he gave me. It might seem like a heavy burden to carry the divine heart of Jesus, feel his great love and pain for you. And yet I think of it as an honor. Whenever I went through a hard time in my life, I found a confidant, someone who loved me, and I unburdened myself to them. And they might have been a little bit more burdened afterward, but I felt better. I wonder if it's that way with Jesus. Maybe with my unburdening myself and I felt better, maybe now Jesus was unburdening himself to me, to share with me what he feels. And maybe he feels a little bit less burdened. And then he revealed it to me. Every single one of the members of Hope's Garden, every time you find yourself a little less burdened, that is when his heart is less burdened. For his heart is intimately linked to yours. And you are burdened, but we're carrying it with you. You are not alone in the dark. Turn and look to the light. It is Jesus, and he will win. And he's doing something new and powerful for you, in you, and through you. Thank you for letting me be part of Hope's Garden.